I've fought in many places, faced all kinds of danger, but no battle was as long and grueling as the war inside my own family. For over 20 years, I was turned into an ATM in combat boots, working and sending money home, while not a single person asked if I had enough to live on. They took my sacrifice for granted and my silence as consent. And when my own father told me I would never be as good as my deadbeat freeloader of a brother, I had to ask myself, how much longer until I finally dared to draw the line? My name is Max. I'm 28, a sergeant in the US Army. For the last 5 years, the military has forged me into a different person, disciplined, calm, able to keep a cool head even when everything around me is chaos. To me, this uniform isn't just a job. It's the only pride I've had since I left that house. I enlisted to find my own path, but I never escaped my family's shadow. My father is a weak man, a pushover who's never had a say in his own home. Linda, my stepmother, is clever enough to make anyone believe she sacrifices everything for both of her boys. Only I know that her sacrifice always had one goal, to make sure her own son got it all. And then there's Cole, my half-brother. He's never managed to do a single thing for himself, and his greatest achievement to this day is knowing how to leech off of others. He's always talking about his next startup, his next million-dollar app. It's all fantasy, but the bills for those ideas were always real, and I was always the one who paid them. My mother died when I was 5. Not long after, my father married Linda. Cole was born, and from then on, my role in the house was set in stone. Take care of my brother, give way to my brother, and later, provide for my brother. I enlisted 5 years ago. I thought the distance would give me room to breathe, but it didn't. It just turned me into a long-distance wallet, easier to control since I wasn't there to argue back. Every month, on payday, a large sum of money was automatically transferred from my account to my father's. Linda would say it was money I sent to help the family, but I wasn't an idiot. I knew it was for Cole's new phones, designer clothes, or to be blown on whatever startup he'd dreamed up that week. I knew everything. I'd see the pictures he posted on social media, bragging from expensive places. And every phone call with Linda was the same old song. Cole is so smart, he just needs his big break. Always ending with, "You just focus on your duty, son. We'll take care of things at home, Lou." And she did take care of things. She took care of the spending, Cole took care of the enjoying, and I took care of working my ass off to send money back. My father, he stayed silent. He's been silent like that for over 20 years. In their eyes, I wasn't the eldest son. I was an ATM in a uniform who knew how to work, how to send money, and how to stay quiet. But every silence has its limit. I knew the thread was about to snap. The rec room was empty then, with only the sound of the ceiling fan spinning. I sat down, opened my laptop, and started the video call. On the screen, the whole family was gathered. A simple party spread, a few balloons hanging in the background. It was my father's birthday. The gift I'd sent last week, an expensive therapeutic massage chair, sat right behind him, still shiny and new. Linda appeared first, her smile as radiant as ever. "Max, son, you look like you've lost weight. Is everything okay at work?" My father, sitting next to her, just nodded and gave a weak smile. "Thanks for the gift, son," he said in a flat voice. "I really like it." That was it. No one asked where I was stationed, what I'd been through. No one really wanted to know. After a few minutes of bland small talk, Cole sauntered into the frame, hair slicked back with gel, wearing a designer t-shirt and holding a coffee. He flopped down next to my dad, a wide grin on his face. "Talking to Max?" he asked his mum, then turned to the screen. "Hey man, I'm about to get funding for a new project. Super promising. It's going to revolutionize the food delivery market. $1 million idea. Just need to find the right investor, and it'll blow up." Linda immediately seized the opportunity, her voice full of pride. "See, he has such a good head for business. He just needs a little seed money to get started. That's my boy." She turned to me, her voice sickeningly sweet. "You have a stable career in the service, Max. Just keep doing your duty. Cole is different. He has to take risks." Then she glanced at my father. It was a signal I knew all too well. My father cleared his throat, looked at me through the screen, and said words I knew weren't his own. "I'm proud you're a soldier, Max. But that path, It's stable but so confining. You have to be like Cole. He has disruptive ideas. He's a doer. You'll never have his kind of sharpness. I sat there, stunned. The uniform on my body suddenly felt heavy, like it had turned into a set of shackles. All the nights on patrol, all the times I'd gritted my teeth to protect my brothers in arms, every drop of sweat and blood, all of it reduced to a single word: confining. I took a deep breath, keeping my voice perfectly calm. I have to go. Happy birthday, Dad. I ended the call before they could say anything else. I sat motionless, staring at the black screen. I wasn't angry. My anger wasn't hot. It was cold. It was a different kind of energy, one that makes the mind sharp and brings everything into focus. And then, as if to confirm everything, my phone buzzed. A text from Linda. Thanks for calling. Your father loves the chair. By the way, Cole's project needs a bit of funding to run a beta test this month. See if you can take care of it for him. No questions about how I was. Not a hint of concern. The thank you for the expensive gift was just a preface to another demand. I read the message 3 times. Then I put the phone down. The thread hadn't just snapped. It had been cut, and my mission had just changed. I was on guard duty that night. The air was still, the wind barely whispering across the base's empty courtyard. I sat alone, my back against the cold concrete wall, my eyes fixed on the darkness, but my mind was somewhere else. It was pulling me back through old memories, through scenes I thought I had left behind. I saw a 10-year-old boy, standing in the kitchen, his hands submerged in a sink full of dishes. Cole's laughter echoed from the living room where he was watching TV, his feet propped up on the table. The stack of dirty plates in front of me was chin-high, while on the screen, cartoons danced in a world of color. Linda walked by, put a hand on my shoulder, her voice sweet. "You're such a good boy, Max. A proper big brother, taking care of the little one." No. I saw myself wearing last year's worn-out school shirt, while Cole walked out the door in a brand-new uniform, his shoes still smelling of fresh leather. Linda patted my shoulder. "You're older now. You know how to save a little for your brother." I nodded. Back then, I thought that made me more mature than him. Then I saw my teenage self. I was working in a diner, breathing in the smell of grease, wiping tables, carrying trays, just to afford a few books and a used backpack. And Cole. He was showing off his new game console to his friends in the schoolyard. Linda told the neighbors, "Max is so independent, he doesn't want to bother anyone." It sounded like praise, but it was just a cover for the fact that I'd been left to fend for myself. Then came the day I enlisted. I still remember Linda's promise as I was leaving. She held my hand, her eyes teary. "You take care of yourself. Things are tough at home, but we'll manage. If you have a little extra, just help out the family a bit, okay, son?" Her little bit quickly became a fixed responsibility. Every month, my pay went straight home. I remember the times I had to turn down a beer with my buddies because my wallet was empty. The times at the end of the month when all I could afford was instant noodles, chewing on the dry, hard brick while Cole was checking into a bar with a sparkling bottle of liquor on his table. Sitting there in the night, I pieced the memories together. It wasn't that I was too dutiful. It wasn't that I was too sentimental. This was a system, an exploitation machine built over 20 years ago, and I, the fool, had willingly served as a cog to keep it running. Linda was the strategist, my father was the silent accomplice, and Cole was the beneficiary. 3 positions, 3 roles, perfectly connected. And where was I? I was just the fuel that powered the machine. I saw one thing clearly. For all these years, my loyalty and sense of duty hadn't been cherished. They had been used, ruthlessly and methodically. Dawn broke across the desert, chasing away the darkness and the last of my illusions. The realization didn't break me, it gave me a target. In the army, a target means you have a direction. When my shift ended, the first thing I did was walk straight to the company commander's office. I knocked, entered, stood at attention, and saluted. "Captain, I'm requesting emergency leave." Captain Johnson, a weathered, no-nonsense man, looked up from his paperwork. "Something serious, Sergeant?" "Yes, Captain," I replied, my voice steady. "A critical family matter to resolve." He looked me straight in the eye, probably searching for a sign of weakness or panic. He didn't find one. He just nodded. "Get the paperwork ready. I'll sign it." The process was quick. 10 days. Just enough time to execute the mission and withdraw. My next stop was the on-base bank. I didn't need to explain much. I need a detailed statement of all transfers from this account to one specific account. I read my father's account number aloud. For the past 5 years, the teller printed out a thick stack of papers. I took it, feeling its weight in my hands. This wasn't paper, this was evidence. I spent the entire afternoon in my room with the door locked, not to wallow in my pain, but to work. I laid the statements out on the floor, using 2 different highlighters. Yellow for essential living expenses, rent, utilities. Red for everything else, all the ridiculous expenses under Cole's name. The red list grew obscenely long. A new gaming laptop, a new phone every year, project registration fees, client meeting expenses, even money to pay off an urgent debt. All of it was disguised in Linda's emotional text messages. I used my laptop and opened an Excel spreadsheet. Meticulously and precisely, I entered every red highlighted amount, date, amount, notes. Like a sniper calculating a shot, I allowed no room for error. The grand total at the bottom of the page climbed with every entry. It quickly passed 6 figures. A truck, a down payment on a house, a different life, a life I hadn't been allowed to live. I saved the file, naming it Damage Report. Then I printed everything, clipped it neatly with the original statements, and put it all in a green file folder. It didn't look like a family document. It looked like a case file. Just before leaving for the airport, my phone buzzed. A text from Cole. "Hey Max, heard you're coming home on leave? Awesome. I'm a little short on cash for the project. Could you spot me alone when you get back? Love ya." I stared at the message, a cold smile touching my lips. They still had no idea. The prey was still grazing peacefully, unaware that the hunter had already chambered a round. I turned off the screen without replying. The operation had officially begun. Radio silence initiated. The flight was nearly half a day long, landing at the civilian airport near my hometown. The air was humid and heavy, a world away from the dry desert heat. I hadn't told anyone my arrival time. There was no one waiting, no fake hugs. I preferred it that way. It kept me focused. I took a taxi straight home. As the car turned onto the familiar street, I saw the 2-story house, same as always. The white paint was slightly yellowed, the front lawn neatly trimmed. It looked peaceful. A fake peace. I paid the driver, slung my duffel bag over my shoulder, and held the green file folder in my hand. I didn't ring the doorbell. I used my own key, quietly unlocked the door, and stepped inside. They were in the living room. The TV was blaring. Linda was on the sofa, scrolling through her phone. Cole was sprawled on the rug, his eyes glued to a game on the screen. My father was sitting in the new massage chair, his eyes half closed, appearing to enjoy my gift. No one noticed me until I spoke. "Hello, everyone." My voice wasn't loud, but it was enough to cut through every other sound in the room. All 3 of them jumped. Linda was the first to react, scrambling to her feet, that familiar smile plastered on her face. "Max, why didn't you tell us you were coming? I would have picked you up from the airport." "I wanted it to be a surprise," I replied, setting my bag on the floor. The file folder was still in my hand. "It's good to have you back," my father said, sitting up in the chair. Cole just gave a lazy wave. "Hey man, sit down, son, get some rest," Linda said eagerly. "You must be tired from the trip. Let me get you a glass of water." "I don't need anything," I cut her off, walking straight to the coffee table in the middle of the room. "I didn't come here to rest. I came here to work." I placed the file folder on the table. The hard thump it made drew everyone's attention. Cole sat up, frowning. My father looked at me, confused. Linda gave a nervous laugh. "What work, honey? Why are you being so serious?" "An audit," I said, looking her straight in the eye. "A financial audit of this family for the past 5 years." Silence fell over the room. The smile on Linda's face froze. Cole stared at me like I was speaking another language. "What are you talking about?" my father finally asked, his voice hesitant. I didn't answer him. I opened the folder, pulling out the bank statements and the Excel report I had prepared. I pushed it across the table toward them. "This is a detailed list of all the money I've sent home in the last 5 years. The total is $112,450. Of that, $32,500 is marked in yellow, which we'll generously call living expenses. The rest," I tapped my finger on the red highlighted lines, The other $80,000 was for other things. Are you insane? Cole was the first to break the silence. What the hell are you talking about? I'm talking about the money for your gaming laptop, I replied, my voice flat and unchanging. The money for a new phone every year, the money for projects that never existed, the money for vacations. It's all here. Linda's face had gone pale, but she was trying to maintain her composure. Her voice trembled. Max, why are you doing this? You helped the family voluntarily. Why are you counting every penny with your parents and brother? Voluntarily? I let out a humorless smirk. You call those tearful late-night texts begging for money voluntary? You call manipulating the guilt of a son stationed thousands of miles away voluntary? I turned to my father. Dad, you said I'd never have Cole's sharpness. You were right. I wasn't sharp enough to realize I was being used for all these years. But I see it now. I stood up straight, the posture of a soldier reporting to a superior officer. As of today, this investment is officially terminated. Not one more dime will be sent. Cole, I looked him dead in the eye. You're 22 years old. It's time to prove your disruptive thinking. Go earn your own damn money. I didn't wait for their reply. My mission was accomplished. The bomb had been dropped. Now it was time to withdraw from the blast zone. I turned and picked up my duffel bag. Max, stop right there, my father yelled from behind me, the first time I'd ever heard him raise his voice like that. You can't do this. I didn't look back. I said one last thing before walking out the door. I already have. The door slammed shut behind me, leaving chaos, confusion, and an undeniable truth on the table. The battle was over, and I had won. I didn't go far. I had already booked a room in a cheap motel on the edge of town, an anonymous place where no one could find me. I needed a safe house to observe and consolidate my position after the attack. As expected, my phone started blowing up just minutes after I left the house. The first call was from my father. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. A notification popped up immediately. His voice was frantic and angry. Max, you get back here right now. What the hell do you think you're doing? You're destroying this family. I deleted the voicemail without listening to the end. The second call was from an unknown number. I answered. It was Linda, sobbing hysterically on the other end. Max, I'm begging you. Why would you treat your family like this? What did I do wrong? Cole, he's in shock. He's locked himself in his room. You did nothing wrong. I cut in, my voice cold as ice. You were just incredibly successful at turning me into an ATM. But the machine is out of cash now. No, it's not like that. I hung up, blocked the number. Then came a barrage of texts from Cole. At first, it was just profanity, the kind of insults a spoiled kid uses when he doesn't get his way. You bastard. Who do you think you are? You're just a grunt. You're gonna regret this. I read them and smiled. Their panic was confirmation of my victory. I turned off my notifications, put my phone on silent, and took a shower. Standing under the hot water, I felt like I was washing away the filth of the past 20-something years. For the first time, I felt light. The next morning, their campaign moved into a new phase. Indirect assault. The caller was my aunt, my father's sister. Her voice was full of concern. Max, honey, I heard from Linda. What happened? Why would you make your parents so sad? Whatever it is, you should talk it out. Auntie, I said, my voice calm. Did you ever ask me why I had to enlist? Did you ever ask me how I was living? Or do you only listen to one side of the story? There was silence on the other end. When you're ready to hear my side, call me back. Right now, I'm busy. I hung up. I knew they wouldn't stop. Linda was a strategist when it came to emotional manipulation. She would mobilize every relative, every family friend, anyone who could put pressure on me. But I was a strategist too, and I knew this battlefield all too well. I opened my laptop and did two things. One, I opened my banking app and cancelled the recurring monthly transfer. An invisible shackle had been broken. Two, I scanned the entire damage report into a PDF, password, protected it, and emailed it to myself. Then I sent a copy to my closest friend in my unit, a man I trusted with my life. My note said, if anything happens to me, make this public. It was my insurance policy. The third day of the war passed in silence. They were probably regrouping, coming up with a new plan. The silence before a storm is always the most unsettling. And then, that evening, an email arrived. From my father. The subject line, "We need to talk." No. The email itself was short, with no accusations, just a single, desperate line. "They've frozen my credit cards. The electric bill is due. Cole needs money to pay off an urgent debt. You've won, Max. Now, what do you want?" I read the email, staring at that last sentence. What do you want? There it was. The moment the balance of power had completely shifted, they were no longer commanding, they were asking, and now, I was the one who would set the terms. I didn't reply to the email right away. In a negotiation, whoever is more desperate loses. I had waited over 20 years. They could wait another day. I spent that day doing things for myself. I drove to the coast and sat for hours, watching the waves crash against the shore. I breathed in the salt air, feeling a sense of freedom. I had forgotten what it felt like. That evening, I sat in my motel room, opened my laptop, and began to type. I didn't write a long, emotional letter. I wrote it like I would write a mission brief, clear, to the point, and leaving no room for misinterpretation. I replied to my father's email. I told him that in order to solve their immediate problems, they needed to accept my terms, and the terms were non-negotiable. First, I wanted an admission of guilt. A written apology from all three of them, sent to my email by 0900 the next morning. A real apology, not for making me sad, but for financially exploiting and emotionally manipulating me. Second, all financial ties were to be severed, permanently. I would no longer be responsible for any of their bills or debts. Third, and most importantly, Cole's accountability. I gave him 30 days to find a full-time job and send me proof. From then on, he would have to contribute half of his income to the household, so he could learn the value of the money he had so carelessly spent. Finally, to make sure they didn't repeat their mistakes, I required my father and Linda to attend a financial counseling course. I ended the email with a conditional offer. If, and only if, all of the above terms were met, I would consider giving them a single, one-time loan. It would be a loan with a formal contract and interest, not a gift. If they refused, the offer was off the table, and they would have to face the consequences on their own. I reread every word, making sure my message could not be misconstrued. Then I hit send. After that, I shut down my laptop and turned off my phone. I had given my orders. Now, the choice was theirs. Whatever path they chose, I was prepared. That night, for the first time in years, I slept soundly, without dreaming. The next morning, I turned on my phone at 9:05 a.m. In my inbox, there was a new email from my father's account. Attached was a Word document. I held my breath and opened it. Inside were 3 short paragraphs. The first was from my father, admitting his weakness. The second was from Linda. Her words still held a trace of pride, but she admitted to placing too much of a burden on me. The last and shortest was from Cole. It was a single sentence. "I'm sorry for taking advantage of you. It wasn't a perfect apology. It was forced and probably coerced, but it was an admission. The first term had been met." At that exact moment, my phone buzzed with a text message. From Cole. "I'm never going to forget this, Max." I smiled. I knew he wouldn't. That was the whole point. The game had changed, and from now on, I was the one writing the rules. That grudging apology was the starting gun for the next phase of the plan. I kept my promise. I contacted a lawyer I found online and had him draft a simple personal loan contract. The amount was just enough to clear my father's credit card debt and the electric bill. Not a penny more. I emailed them the contract. 2 days later, I received it back, with all 3 signatures. I transferred the money. The transaction was complete, as cold and impersonal as a business deal. For the rest of my leave, I didn't go back to that house. I spent my time visiting my mother's grave, something I hadn't done in a long time. I stood before the cold headstone and told her everything. He didn't cry. I just felt a strange sense of peace, as if an invisible weight I had been carrying for her, too, had finally been set down. The day I returned to my unit, no one saw me off. That was perfectly fine. The airport was crowded and noisy, but I felt lighter than ever. My life slowly settled into a new routine. For the first time, the balance in my bank account started to grow. I used the money to invest in myself. I enrolled in advanced training courses and started a savings fund for the future. The feeling of having total control over the money I earned was unfamiliar, but incredible. I still kept in touch with my family, but in a completely different way. I had a short video call with my father once a week. The conversations were still awkward, but there were no more hints about money. Sometimes, he seemed more relaxed, as if he, too, had been freed from Linda's pressure. Exactly 30 days later, I received an email. Attached was a scanned copy of Cole's employment contract, a warehouse job for a logistics company. The pay wasn't great, but it was a real job. I didn't reply. His action was the answer. Occasionally, I'd see Cole's posts on social media. No more bragging from resorts or showing off expensive designer gear. Instead, there were posts complaining about waking up early, about a demanding boss. For the first time in his life, he was getting a taste of reality. Linda never contacted me directly again. Maybe her pride was too great, or maybe she knew she had lost all her power over me. Our relationship was broken. Maybe it could never be repaired to what it once was, but I realized that what it once was had been toxic. Now, there were clear boundaries between us, built on hard truths instead of sweet lies. A few months later, on a quiet evening at the base, I got a call from my father. "Max," he began a little hesitantly, "it's Cole's birthday this weekend. We were thinking of going out for a simple dinner. Would you want to join us?" I was silent for a moment. The invitation came with no strings attached. It was just an invitation. "I can't make it back, Dad," I replied, my voice calm. "But please wish him a happy birthday for me," I added. "And Dad, keep using that massage chair. It's all paid for. Consider it my last birthday gift." "Thank you, Max." His voice cracked. I hung up. I knew it was a small step, but an important one. I was no longer their ATM. I was no longer the enemy. I was slowly becoming a son and a brother, in the truest sense. A person with his own life, his own limits, and the right to be respected. I looked out the window toward my distant hometown. The war was over. I had lost a fake family, but I had found myself, and for a soldier, that was a victory greater than any battle.